The real reason I chose my older woman. People think they know why I chose her. They whisper behind my back, call me names, and think it was all a fantasy. A young man lost in the charm of an older woman. But the truth is much deeper, much softer, and more powerful than anyone could imagine. When I first met her, I wasn't looking for love. I was looking for peace. My world was loud, filled with people who spoke too much but listened too little. She, on the other hand, spoke less, but said everything that mattered with her eyes. Those eyes had seen years of heartbreak and healing, silence and storms, and yet they were calm like the sea at dawn. I remember that evening clearly. She was sitting alone at a small cafe, reading an old poetry book. Her hands moved across the pages as if she knew every word by heart. I asked if I could sit. She looked up, smiled, and said, "If you can sit without disturbing the poetry." That was our first conversation. Days turned into weeks. We kept meeting at that cafe, sometimes without even planning it. She had this strange way of making time slow down. Around her, I felt seen, not as a boy chasing dreams, but as a man who could finally stop pretending. People say I fell for her maturity, her wisdom. Maybe that's part of it. But the real reason goes beyond that. I chose her because she understood silence. In a world where everyone wants to speak, she taught me the beauty of saying nothing. She never tried to impress me. She never dressed to make me look twice, yet I couldn't look away. She never promised forever, yet she gave me a kind of peace that felt eternal. She didn't need to compete with anyone because she already knew who she was. And maybe that's what drew me the most. Her confidence wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, like a candle that never flickered no matter how strong the wind blew. But the real reason, the deepest truth, was that she didn't love me like a young man. She loved me like a human being. She didn't want to change me, fix me, or mold me into something I wasn't. She just accepted me, and that kind of love is rare, almost holy. There were moments when I questioned myself. What will people say? I'd ask her. She would smile and say, let them say what they want. People only understand what they've lived. Those words stuck with me. It wasn't easy. My friends laughed, my family questioned me, and strangers made assumptions. But every time I looked into her eyes, I knew I was right where I belonged. Age, I realized, isn't a measure of time, it's a measure of understanding. And she understood life better than anyone I'd ever met. Sometimes I still hear the gossip, the judgment. They say I'll change, that one day I'll want someone younger. But what they don't understand is that I didn't choose her because of what she gave me. I chose her because of what I became when I was with her. I became calmer, kinder, more human. She once told me, love isn't about finding someone your age. It's about finding someone. The more time I spent with her, the more I realized how different she was from anyone I had ever known. She didn't chase attention, and yet she captured every heart in the room. There was grace in the way she spoke, and a kind of strength that didn't need to prove itself. When I was with her, I didn't need to act tough or pretend to be strong. She saw through all my walls, straight into the places I hid from the world. And she never judged me for them. She would just listen, really listen, and sometimes that was all I needed. She once told me, love isn't about filling your emptiness. It's about sharing your fullness. I didn't understand it at first, but as time passed, I realized she had already filled her own heart with so much wisdom and calmness that she didn't need to take from mine. Instead, she added to it. Our days together were simple. Coffee in the mornings, walks in the evening, laughter about small things. She didn't believe in grand gestures. She believed in presence, and that I learned was rarer than any expensive gift. But love stories like ours are never easy. The world doesn't like things it can't explain. My friends stopped calling as often. They said I was wasting my youth. My family spoke softly around me as if I had made a mistake too big to fix. And she started to pull away. Not because she stopped loving me, but because she didn't want my life to shrink for her. She said, "You deserve to walk in sunlight without carrying the world's questions on your shoulders." Her words broke something inside me. I didn't want sunlight without her in it. I told her that love was worth fighting for, even if it meant standing against everyone. But she smiled that same calm smile and said, "Sometimes love's greatest proof is knowing when to let go." Those words haunted me for weeks. I tried to move on, to forget the sound of her laughter, the way she stirred her tea, the way she called me my foolish dreamer. But no matter how hard I tried, she stayed with me in the silence of the mornings, in the glow of city lights at night. Then one day I saw her again, not at the cafe this time, but at a book launch. She looked radiant, confident, surrounded by people who admired her work. She had written a collection of poems about love, loss, and time. When she saw me, her eyes softened. She came over, and for a moment it felt like nothing had changed. "You came," she said softly. I smiled and replied, "I never really left." We talked that night, not about the past, but about everything we had learned. She told me that love wasn't meant to cage anyone. It was meant to make them grow. And I realized that she hadn't walked away to hurt me. She had walked away to let me find myself. That night, when we said goodbye again, I didn't feel pain. I felt peace, because I finally understood the real reason. I had chosen her. It wasn't just for love. It was for growth, for truth, for learning what real connection means. And though our story didn't end, like months passed, and yet her presence never truly left me. It lingered in the quiet moments, like the scent of rain long after the clouds had gone. I often found myself walking by that same cafe where we first met, half hoping, half knowing she wouldn't be there. But something in me kept returning, as if a part of my soul was still seated across from her, watching her turn the pages of that poetry book. I had changed, though. She had changed me. The restless boy who once chased validation from the world had become a man who found contentment in silence. Her absence had become my greatest teacher. It taught me patience, depth, and the kind of peace that doesn't depend on anyone else's presence. I started writing. At first it was just words, small fragments of memory, scattered thoughts, unspoken feelings. But slowly those words took shape, became paragraphs, and then stories. Every line I wrote carried a piece of her wisdom, her laughter, her quiet strength. She had told me once, the best way to love someone who's gone is to live beautifully because of them. And so I tried. One evening, as I was preparing for my first book launch, I received a message. It was from her, short, simple, proud of you. I always knew you would find your voice. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, unable to move. It felt like time had folded back upon itself, bringing her voice into my present once more. At the event, as people praised my writing, one interviewer asked me, "What inspired your book?" I smiled, took a deep breath, and said, "A woman who taught me that love doesn't always end with forever. It sometimes ends with freedom." After the applause faded and the lights dimmed, I walked outside into the soft night. The air felt lighter, almost like her presence was walking beside me. Maybe she wasn't gone after all. Maybe love, once real, never truly leaves. It simply transforms. Later that week, I saw her again. This time, she was sitting at a park bench feeding the birds. The silver in her hair caught the sunlight, and her face glowed with that same peaceful grace I had fallen for years ago. I sat beside her. No words at first, just quiet, comfortable silence. Then she said softly, "You've grown." I smiled. "You taught me how." She nodded, her eyes full of warmth. "I only helped you remember what was already inside you." We talked about life, about the years that had passed. She told me she had found peace in her solitude, and I told her that her lessons had become my compass. There was no bitterness, no regret, only gratitude. Before leaving, she placed her hand over mine and said, "You once chose me because I was older. But now I see you chose me because your soul was older than your years." Those words stayed with me. They defined everything I couldn't explain to others. The real reason I chose her wasn't about age, attraction, or rebellion. It was about recognition. Two souls meeting in the quiet understanding that time couldn't measure love, only